Viktor Frankl was a psychologist. He was the director of the neurology department in the Rothschild Hospital in Vienna, Austria, when, in 1942, the Nazis seized him and his family and condemned them to concentration camps such as Dachau and Auschwitz. He survived the death camp, part of a genocidal program to eliminate Jews from Europe through systematic mass murder, the Nazis' final solution. He was liberated in 1945. In this hellish laboratory of human behavior, Frankl continued to observe his fellow man. One thing he noted was that human beings can tolerate extremes of hunger, overwork, and torture, as long as they maintain the will to survive. If they lost that will, if they gave up, they would die within a day or two. He noted that some survivors were motivated by a desire to return to their families, some by a drive for personal survival, while others burned with hatred for the Nazis. It didn't matter. What mattered was that they believed that something had meaning. As long as they were able to retain that belief, they lived. When they lost it, they died. He developed this observation into a philosophy and a psychological therapeutic technique that he named logotherapy. His highly recommended book, Man's Search for Meaning, begins with his testimony about Auschwitz and ends with his argument for logotherapy. Meaning, he argues, is not so much revealed or discovered, but invested into life by the practitioner. One logotherapy drill, which I did for a year, is to use a daily page calendar. At the end of the day, write on the back of the page a note about what you did that day that you believe had meaning. At year's end, review the notes, think about what has had meaning for you, and then throw the calendar away. Meaning, Frankl asserts, is an individual process, not an objective thing. Our lives became meaningful when we invest meaning into them. We must decide or realize what has meaning for us. It could be raising a happy, safe child. It could be solving the mystery of the Great Pyramid. It could be landing a triple Lutz. After the child is raised, the mystery solved, and the Lutz landed, we can determine a new meaning. We can invest the rest of our days with that. All this I believe to be true and extremely helpful, especially for the present generation. There are now almost 330 million Americans. I was a boy in junior high school when we went over 200 million. I remember a universal optimism. My father told me that I could be anything I wanted. I believed him. We all believe in the Horatio Alger myth. A young boy with pluck could work his way to the top. Our mailing address was Carnegie, Pennsylvania, for goodness sake. Dale Carnegie started as a delivery boy, and through pluck and hard work, he became the richest man in the world. My own father, abandoned by his father when he was 13, used the GI Bill to put himself through school. While married with 2 sons, he studied overtime, worked a 40-hour week every week in a steel mill, and earned a 4-year college degree in 2.5 years. He became an executive, eventually rising to the position of president of one of B.F. Goodrich's companies. Those of us who were African American had a different perspective, stamped by 400 years of oppression and cheated opportunities. Those of us who were women saw an uphill struggle ahead. Throughout the culture, though, there was this widespread optimism. What happened to that optimism? Sheer numbers, for one thing. The country didn't feel so crowded back then. You felt that there was room for you. You were needed. Your ability to contribute to the community was valued. Today, everyone labors under the stress of feeling valueless and supernumerary. Young people are desperate to fit in somewhere, anywhere, so that they can make a decent living and have some sort of public identity. Back then, there were more opportunities at the ground level. Mom-and-pop stores were everywhere. You could get an entry-level job from an uncle or a neighbor. You could start your own business. Today, the big box stores and international chains have eaten up most of those businesses. You can get a job, but usually you're flipping burgers or greeting shoppers. You can advance, but only as a slightly larger cog in a colossal enterprise that does not give one damn about you as an individual. The government, meanwhile, through excessive taxation and overregulation, has made it extremely difficult, if not nearly impossible, to start and operate a small business. Most small business owners struggle desperately. Many are forced to cheat. Taxation and overregulation have become so burdensome that a small business needs full-time legal, accounting, and clerical support. Such support is often too expensive to allow the business to operate at a profit. People used to save and start their small businesses using their own capital. Thanks to our overspending government and the Federal Reserve Bank's inflationary policies, today's savings earn almost no interest. In fact, any money saved gets less valuable every year. The government, the banks, and the consumerist culture that they have encouraged have almost eliminated the concept of delayed gratification. This is a term that you never hear anymore, but which was common when I was young. I remember when Diners Club introduced the consumer credit card. People were suspicious of it. They did not like to borrow money. Borrowing was un-American. Benjamin Franklin and Ralph Waldo Emerson said so. If those two giants were not spokesmen for the American character, whoever was? Today, almost everyone is submerged in debt. The young people stagger under a burden of student debt that had grown to $1.7 trillion. To start and operate a small business, such as, say, a chicken farm, you have to go so deeply in debt that you can't afford to pay yourself a living wage. To run a business, you have to work a 60-hour week, even an 80-hour week, under intense physical and emotional stress. Then pay yourself less than you would earn flipping burgers. The struggle between the classes did not start in 1963. It has been fought for centuries, both in Europe and in the Americas. The coup d'etat of November 22, 1963, however, was a decisive victory for the oligarchy. My parents' generation had much more confidence in their government. Those of us who are boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Y have much less faith. We are not so stupid that we have failed to notice that the federal government is not acting for our benefit, but rather for the benefit of the wealthiest of the oligarchy, not even for the 1%, but rather for the 0.001%. If the system were only a little less vampiric, we would have more opportunities for meaningful work. We would have less a feeling that we are struggling to survive in an unfair system. We would have more of a feeling that we are participating in a fair system, that our work contributes to the Commonwealth, that it has meaning. The situation is bad, but it's going to get worse. Automation is going to make more and more people unnecessary. For example, once we trust self-driving trucks, over 1 million truckers are going to be put out of work. Today, out-of-work miners are told to learn to code. This flippant advice is given by politicians and pundits who have never written a line of code in their lives. Well, to be a code slinger today, you have to compete with millions of coders throughout the world. With millions of coders in India and China. Increasingly, all of us humans are going to have to compete with the machine. We do not have to wait for the singularity, when systems become self-aware, for the day when programs are writing programs. They are doing so today. Genetic programming uses Darwinian principles for machines to develop best-of-breed programs with only top-level guidance from humans. In discussing meaning, why does this essay stress work so much? In 1967, Harlan Ellison's far-seeing anthology, Dangerous Visions, included a story by Philip Jose Farmer titled, Riders of the Purple Wage. He envisioned a society of obsolete humans, all living on a dole called the Purple Wage. Today, some progressive politicians are advocating universal basic income. Money for nothing. Maybe UBI would answer the question, how will our consumers keep consuming if they have no real work and no money? Does it answer the question, how important is work to a meaningful life? I agree with Frankl, but I believe that meaning is not entirely arbitrary. We have to consider our nature as living beings. Let's do that on 3 levels, human, simian, and animal. First, we stood up. Then our front paws got handier. Then our brains got bigger. As our hands got handier, we needed bigger and bigger brains to learn how to make and wield tools. Chimps use tools. So do crows. But we humans are the masters of tool wielding. We got crescent wrenches and 9 irons, rudders and gallant masts, airbrushes and retractors, plumb bobs and presses, jigsaws and carabiners. Tools, baby. We got tools. Why? Because we love tools. We love to wield tools. We love to make things. The making of things is a quintessentially human activity. We like work. We need work. Machines will not do it all for us. As long as we live in an imperfect world, there will be work that needs to be done. People want to work. Accept the enduring truth of that. Disabuse yourself of the notion that people can find meaning in their lives by doing drugs and playing video games. There is work to be done. As humans, we need to work. 1 + 1 is equal to 2. Do the math. Live and govern according to this truth. Let the people decide what they want to build. Let them build it. You'll see some wastefulness, but sooner rather than later, you will see a world that is far better than anything any central planner could ever have envisioned. I am a tool wielder. My tools right now are a Sharpie Ultra fine point marker and an unlined, acid-free 10-inch by 14-inch bound sketchbook. I am a writer. My work is writing books. This is how I invest my days with meaning. As humans, we are also simians. As simians, we are tribal. We care what our fellow tribe members think about us. Large areas of our brain are dedicated to recognizing their expressions and to developing theories of mind about them, especially the leaders, those who have the power to hurt us, and those who may make good mates. As simians, we are hierarchical. The military is so explicitly hierarchical that we walk around with our ranks on our shirt collars. Utopian experiments aside, every known society is hierarchical. As simians, we are hardwired for hierarchy. The Whigs groan, the Tories cheer. As humans, we need to be aware of this simian characteristic and to manage it. We need to be accepted by our tribe. In the modern world, this is translated into a hunger for fame. Millions, and not billions, of people today believe that their lives have less meaning, or even no meaning at all unless they are famous. Many of the kids want to be media stars. They wanted to be journalists or rock stars, then rappers, then reality TV stars, now Instagram celebrities. Depression is increasing because of social media. Kids are judging their self-worth, the meaningfulness of their lives, based upon the number of subscribers, likes, swipes right, and comments. Andy Warhol said we'd all be famous for 15 minutes. A great thing to say. In the age of reality TV, with its talentless Kardashians, it seems that way, but it just is not true. Only a tiny percentage of us will become globally famous. More of US may become nationally famous. More than that, regionally famous. Thankfully, there's plenty of opportunity to become locally famous. Our patron saint in this regard should be Vincent van Gogh. He achieved an audience of 2 people, his brother and his sister-in-law. He went mad, despaired, and killed himself. His brother died. It was his sister-in-law, as a widow, who began to sell his paintings. His fame spread. Today, he is an immortal icon. Vincent should be our hero for 2 reasons. 1, as much as any work can be said to be intrinsically valuable or objectively beautiful, the oils of Vincent van Gogh were valuable and beautiful, with or without an audience. 2, you never know. You can die in obscurity, and your work can become immortal. So temper your desire for fame. It is a pit of despair. Continue to seek an audience. It is important, but if your work helps you to connect with only one single person, then consider yourself successful. Your single-person fame is all you need for your work to have meaning. Besides, remember what Bill Murray said, people who want to be rich and famous should try being rich first. See if that doesn't cover most of it. The famous tell us that fame is a pain in the ass. Finally, let's examine meaning at the animal level. We were animal before we were simian. Meaning to an animal is the most fundamental, the most basic, and the most important. As animals, we want to survive and to procreate. That is hard-coded in the DNA in every cell in your body. That goes all the way back through monkeys to rat-like mammals to amphibians to fish to one-cell creatures. Survive. Procreate. If, as a human, you elect not to have children, or cannot, then consider finding meaning in helping those children who already exist. Your second spouse's grandkids. Orphans in Africa. There are hundreds of millions of children who need help. Help them. To be human is not to deny our animal nature. It is to focus and maybe one fine day channel or even control it. The paternal and maternal instincts are strong in us. You can find deep meaning through these primal instincts. There is only one imperative that is stronger. Survival. If you are afflicted with despair, with depression, with an overwhelming sense of meaninglessness in a meaningless universe, I've got good news. You have available to you a fountain of incredible power. I'm not talking about Jesus, though believe me, Jesus has the juice. Let me guess. You're eating every day, probably too much and probably bad food. You're not getting any exercise. You're sleeping poorly. You're seeking comfort in unnatural activities like drugs, video games, TV, or pornography. If most of the above is true, the problem is not just the problems that you know about. Yes, those are real problems. You're going to have to deal with them eventually too, even if dealing with them means accepting them and living with them. The fundamental problem may be, however, that you are not tapping into your animal will to survive. Stop eating. Fast for 1 day. Try a fruit juice fast for 3 days. Observe Ramadan. Eat only at night and fast during the day. Just stop eating until you are truly hungry. Nothing awakens the beast like hunger. Get some exercise. Go for long walks in the sunshine. Carry some bricks. Get outside. Sleep by yourself in the wilderness. Don't indulge in suicidal activities like base jumping or free climbing. Stay at least one body length back from the precipice, but find some activity that awakens the animal in you. Whitewater rafting, camping, exploring. When you eat whole foods. Eat stuff that a caveman would eat. Turn off all electronic media. Talk to people. Our modern lifestyles separate us from our animal nature. Find a way to tap into your animal nature. Navy SEALs know a lot about life pushed to the extremes. David Goggins, a former SEAL, said that when you think are totally exhausted, you have burned up only 40% of your capacity. You have another 60% to go. As a human animal, you have far more power and resilience than you believe you have. I am a graduate of the Navy's Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape SEER program at Naval Air Station Brunswick, Maine. I am forbidden to discuss the details of the program, but I can testify that for 48 hours, I learned something about the power of the will to survive. Every other day in my life, I have drifted in a dream. In a survival situation, the real juice turns on. Find a way to tap into that juice, because survival is the ultimate meaning. If you're not feeling that, take a brass brush to your charge post of your animal battery. The pursuit of happiness is the pursuit of meaning. It is an inalienable right.